We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for Coffee Connection, for the virtual Coffee Connection. And this is a special group. At some point, this group is going to grow. Are any of you looking forward to that?
Yes and no.
Yeah. And mostly yes or mostly no?
I think it's split. I think right now, because I'm in total growth mode and bringing someone else to the mix, it would be cool to hear their opinions and ideas. But I also think we have great synergies and maybe a little bit further down the line in discussion than someone new coming in.
Yeah, for me, it's mostly no. It's 80, 90, 99% no. Um, because it slows the four of us down. And I don't like to go slow. I
I don't
just
like to go slow either.
you know. And with new people, they don't know that Mark has social autism. They don't know how direct he is. They don't know any of that. So then they got to get all trained. But there is a new series podcast. Have you both seen the Mark Boersma for Dummies um, video?
Yes, I have
Yes.
watched that.
There's 21 podcasts that are connected into that 2.5 minute video. It's crazy because people when they watch it, they're like, "Oh, that's cute. That's kind of funny." It's like you have no idea. Let's take this one piece here and let's look at this one piece because this is what it's meaning. So after you experience the Mark bomb, then you go ahead and go, "Oh, that's what he was referring to." Yipper. All right, Amy, what you got for today?
Uh, Talking about a little bit about vision, but we also talked about time management last time and time blocking. And if we're looking at the five freedom fighters, like the time, talent, treasure, trust, truth, is that's actually the win-win-win partnerships. But I want to figure out how to incorporate more partnerships into the BOS system is what I'm boiling down to.
So there's frequencies. And so probably 20 years ago, I was coaching a client, Frank Forte, and he went ahead and he was owned his own company at the time, but he was in the Navy and he programmed nuclear missiles. So super smart guy. And I guess my energy when I showed up once on one of the coaching sessions, my energy wasn't the normal energy. He said, "Well, hey, what's going on?" I said, it's no big deal. No, no, I really want to know. I really care for you. I'm like, okay. I said, well, my middle daughter, Katrina, she was 15 at the time. I said, it's just weird, Frank. I mean, I can go 18 hours and I have more energy at the end of the day than I do at the beginning. Like I am on fire. But I walk into a room where she's in the room. She doesn't say a word to me. I don't say a word to her. Like we don't say anything to anything. And I'm drained. I have nothing left in like 5 minutes. He laughs. He says, "Oh, that's just frequency." And I'm like, "What do you mean frequency?" So I didn't pay a lot of attention in school because it didn't really apply to business. And I didn't see, and I love business. And so if my teachers would have just applied it all to business, I'd have been a straight A student. I'm convinced of that. So then I started studying frequencies. And so I started studying frequencies, and what I found out is that there's different frequencies, and these frequencies are really, really important in business. I mean, like you can't even believe. So you have a radio frequency, and then you have, microwave, and then you have the X-ray and the gamma ray, and the higher the frequency, the more intense it is. And so lower frequency can't pierce, penetrate, dense objects or people. High frequency, can penetrate. So I'm a very high frequency person. And so I think now, kind of, sort of, in a way, but it's not always the case. And high frequency is not good or bad, it just is. You know, low frequency people, though, tend to think you're talking down to them or you're talking poorly about them. You're not. You're just, radio wave isn't bad and X-ray isn't good or vice versa. They're not good, but they're different, and you have to respect science. You know, like you're not going to go ahead and find out if your bone is broke by playing the radio. You don't want to be exposed. Like my wife says that, yeah, Mark's an acquired taste. And so you don't want to go ahead and have x-rays every day. You don't want to be around. So sometimes people say to me, Mark, I hate being around you. Make me feel so stupid. And I'm like, well, actually, the truth is I can't make anybody feel stupid. All I can do is reveal it. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Like it's no, it's true. So 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 I think like often the cheerleader is a lower frequency, the teacher is a higher frequency, the coach is a higher yet frequency, and the Navy SEAL is the highest frequency. Each of these are different areas, and so I think probably probably if we grew the group, you could go ahead and break it down into low and high frequencies. Ken MacArthur, I spoke all around the country with him. Crazy, amazing, smart guy. Um, and I didn't find out until later, but people had been traveling around with him for 10 years, 15, 20 years, and they never got to speak at any of his events. And I talked to him and he says, I had a couple conversation, helped him out. He says, hey, Mark, you want to speak at my event? I'm like, I don't know. I guess, sure. It's in Disney World. Absolutely. I'll speak there. And so I did. And then I got to speak. And then I guess it went so well that he had me speak a second time and a third time. And there's nobody else that had ever done that. And there are people that hanging around and supported him and been part of his network and his group, and they didn't get to speak, and I did. But the second time the second time I spoke, he introduced me to all the core people. So I don't know, there's 20, 30 people in the room. I'm there. He's there. He's like, I just want to introduce Mark. He's new to the group. This is his second time speaking. So he's going to be part of the core group and he's going to be speaking. And he's the devil. No, I'd never been introduced as the devil before. He didn't collaborate with me, didn't tell me. I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that means. He says, it's very important for you to understand with Mark that he's just honest. He's just direct. If you ask him a question, he's going to give you the answer. You likely won't like it. You just won't. And it's okay. But don't come back crying to me that you didn't like Mark. He's mean. Don't ask him the question. If you don't ask him the question, he's not going to go ahead and give you an answer to a question you didn't ask. And so maybe in this group, we have high frequencies and low frequencies and all kinds of stuff. It's easier for somebody to go into a lower frequency than a high frequency. So low frequency people have a hard time going high. High can go low, but it can kill them.
Okay.
And
That's
so,
very helpful because with the expressive driver expressive, those typically tend to be the higher frequency people, correct?
yep,
You are amazing because that just solved one of my problems.
right,
Yeah, thank you. Literally, because we're
right,
building interview questions around some leaders for our uplift groups to
yeah,
put leadership in place, and that just literally that's the
right,
partnership I'm looking for. Good, good, good.
yeah, yeah. And you're awesome because you see, you're like, dang.
If you need any help with those questions, I know somebody that might be able to give you some advice.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chris.
Nice. So in building groups of people, you want to understand and respect frequencies.
Hmm.
And going through that and all of that, and this one slide is really cool. Someday we might break it down into pieces. Chris, what you got?
This may be somewhat related to the frequency question. I have a long-standing client, has a lot of turnover recently in leadership and in the president's seat, the ultimate
Yep.
leadership of the organization. She is very anti-coaching and anti-consultant. However, all the people that work for her tell me she's in desperate need of both.
Yeah.
And
sorry, go ahead.
no, trying to understand that dynamic and
Sure.
present it in a way that is not
Right.
immediately taken the wrong way.
Right. So for me, I can relate to somebody who's anti-coaching and consulting. Totally relate to them. Totally can connect. Say, yep, I totally get that. So there's a high statistical probability. Is she the owner then?
She's not an owner. It's a nonprofit and it's a foundation.
The top person.
Yes.
How are they? is the board is the one that controls them then? Gets them
Correct.
on? Okay.
Correct.
Is the board control freaks?
Uh, unknown.
Okay. So if you have high turnover, it typically is for one of two reasons. Okay. And so,
I should have mentioned that they have set times. Since it's a nonprofit, you can only come in a role for a certain period of time. You have a window of, I think it's 8 years, and then you're out.
okay, fascinating. As a general rule, if you go ahead and have high turnover, it's for one of two reasons. One is you don't have amiables in your organization, low frequency people, the amiable personality, because they're the ones that'll smooth everything over, get everybody to connect, heal, you know, heal things, all that kind of stuff. So if you don't have an amiable in an organization, you typically you can have high turnover because the teacher, the coach, and the Navy SEALs all kill each other. I mean, the Navy SEALs, they're Navy SEALs. They're standing, these two are dead. And so, uh, but so if you don't have amiable personalities, you're going to typically have high turnover. Where you're going to have higher turnover is if you have an amiable that's bitter. So an amiable personality is who's bitter. They will destroy an organization. Everybody leaves around them, but they're the last one standing. They'll kill a Navy SEAL. The bitter amiable is the biggest threat probably to an organization because you don't know where it's at. These are the individuals that stay around and there's conflict all around them, but they're never the cause, but they really are the cause, but it's hard to see that they are the cause. So it sounds like though there's a whole bunch of structural stuff that's again, I don't know I don't know the situation, but it would seem like if you got high turnover, you built it in, like if you only have a year, 2 years, 3 years to do something, okay, it would seem like you have high turnover because structurally it's designed to have high turnover. Which, well, that's not a mystery. You structurally have it. And so, questions on that?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's people in the organization, it's not everybody moves at the
Right,
same time. So there's enough organizational memory of the
right,
way things are done and the way people are comfortable. And
right,
she's come in with a bunch of new ideas that are difficult for people to swallow.
right. So typically that's a high frequency person that's coming in. So typically, like it's fascinating to me with me. Um, like people who think I'm nice, I'm really not. I see just based on my God given talents or my experience or stuff, I can meet somebody, hear them say hello, and I can identify their personality. And just based on their tone and energy, instantly, I know strengths, weaknesses, what they like, what they don't. I just everything. And so people who think I'm nice, I'm really not nice. I'm not sharing things with them. People who think I'm mean, I'm really not mean. I care about them. So people who think I care, I really don't. And people think I don't care, I really do. It's kind of weird. So high frequency people, they struggle. They have like social autism. They're very much like me. And they have a hard time. They feel very much alone in life because um because they can see things that into the future, they can see bad things happening. People say they're negative, whatever. Well, is it negative or do I just see disaster and we could prevent disaster if you listen to me, but people don't listen. And so it's complicated. In the 30-minute strategy session, you can learn how to do the 30 minutes. So there's the 3 minute, survey. And Amy's starting to use that. That's really powerful. I mean, really powerful. So in 3 minutes, the 3 minute survey will go ahead and the 3 minute survey, it'll find out their personality, the geo and the pain, and then their biggest challenge and what they'd love help with. And that's it. And then would you like a personality assessment? They click here. Would you like a 30-minute gift strategy session? They click here. And then up here, it's who you were referred by and then there's a code. So Amy can tell them, hey, you're referred by me. And then if she wants to, she can put a code here, and that helps to organize where it's coming from. Once you get this information, then you can do anything you want with the individual. I mean, you can
Interesting.
move.
I'm curious because one thing that sparks is do higher frequency people have trouble communicating their vision to other people to get them on board?
Yes.
That makes sense then.
They need a translator. So Nora is a translator for me. So like it's interesting. Like if like sometime we'll have my wife on here. You guys would enjoy meeting her. If you ask her who cares more about people, you or Mark, she'd say Mark does. So without question, he cares far more than I do. But if you ask anybody who knows us, who's the more caring person, they'd say Rosanna is. And so it's hard. It's almost like, can you have one person doing both? Theoretically, you can. Like Tom Kuntz, he does a really good job of both, but it's really hard. So go ahead.
Well, Mark, so who would be a good translator? Because I'm an expressive driver and I'm getting ready to cast vision for the companies. So, like, what is it like what's the dynamic of a good translator?
Well, the challenge is, I think, the challenge is, so you have your vision, and then you have your corporate vision, your company vision. And ideally, what it is you want to go ahead and get everybody else to connect their vision in with your vision. And so to do that, they have to have a vision, and people don't have a vision. And so
You have to make them feel involved a lot of times, like they've had input, it seems
well,
to me.
that's one aspect. So they feel you can do that. You can feel involved, like they can get them to feel involved. But what's their life vision? What were they created and put on this planet to do? And that's where having, like Tom Kuntz calls it, the principle of the man with a briefcase from 100 yards away. And so, he led 140,000 sales agents in over 70 different countries. And you'd think that people would listen to him, but they didn't. The 140,000 people didn't listen to him. So what would he do is he would know what they needed, and then he would find somebody that would come in, and then he would have them do, it'd have them do what he'd do, but they'll listen to him, but they'll listen to the man with a briefcase from 100 yards away.
Just like when we used to hire sales trainers and sales consultants to come in and reinforce what we already talked about.
Right. And so, I learned that when I was third year into my marriage. My wife comes dancing out. She's all excited, all cute and hot and everything. And she's like, I came up with this great, amazing thing. I said, okay, what is it? And she's like, well, I was reading this book, and this book helped me to see this. And I just looked at her like this, and I cocked my head, and I'm like, okay. She's like, I know. You've been telling me that for 3 years, but I had to read it in a book. And I'm like, geez, that's probably why I become a speaker and author. I don't know if she's read any of the 16 books that I've written, though. So I still have work to do on that. But I don't know what it is about the human condition, but they don't listen. Well, I kind of do. That's probably another topic for another time. But, well, maybe it's not. So, like, I've wondered with my grandkids, why do they often not listen to me? Like I say, you're going to get hurt. Well, most of the time they don't get hurt. Is it because they listened to Grandpa and he protected them and they didn't get hurt? Well, if they didn't get hurt, they don't think. But adults do this too. You warn them, they listen, and they don't get hurt. And they're like, well, Mark was wrong. I didn't get hurt. Grandpa was wrong. I didn't get hurt. So each of the different personalities, what they do is they're judging everybody else. They don't like to be judged, but they judge other people, and they come up with where you're wrong, but they won't tell you where they're wrong, and they might not even know. It's all subconscious. It's just weird. So it's where you come at it from multiple direction. We call it the Navy sniper principle. Well, who's got the best shot to help the person see what they need to see? And it's often not the person's closest to them because they've dismissed certain things, like they have to get it from afar or something. So it's interesting. It's fascinating. Nora, what you got?
So in servicing with the personalities and stuff, so how do you know, or how can you gauge kind of like different personalities, like to not give them too much, but to still enough to like push them, but not push them too far? How do you like that sweet spot? How do you find that in like in the servicing part of it?
So in the coaching, in the coaching, um, you will, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. The challenge is often the drill, the Navy SEAL. That's where you go to get a dimensional gap. You can see up here high frequency. That's where you make a dimensional gap. That's where you go from 100,000 to 250 to a half a million. The Navy SEAL will do that. So it's kind of like my kids say to me when they were growing up, they're like, Dad, you're not bipolar. This is my kids. You're like, man, you got some really nice kids, right? So they'd be like, you're not bipolar, Dad, you're quad or quinpolar. So I spent 2 years as an amiable and 3 years as an expressive. I can go ahead and be more amiable than the amiables, but it's exhausting. It just drains the very life out of me because I think I'm lying to people. I mean, I kind of am, but if you're lying, I don't know if you guys knew this. If you're lying but being nice, it's okay to lie. I never have understood that. My wife says that. I'm like, how is that? Anyways, so I'm best at number 2 and number 4. And I love now at the season of life, I love to be number 4. I mean, so in the in the Action Vision program, pretty much everybody else does 1, 2, and 3. There's a number that can do number 4 too, but they bring me in to humor me and say that I'm still needed once in a while in the coaching. And so it's going through here, Nora, explaining this to your clients and which level do you want? Which level do you want? And then which level
Okay.
do you need? So most people want the cheerleader. The Navy SEAL doesn't. They don't want cheerleader stuff. So most people want the cheerleader. So what we want, that's where in the 30-minute strategy session, where you ask people, if you were 1 to 10, how much of a procrastinator are you? If you were to procrastinate, why would you procrastinate? If you're being coached or mentored or led or something, and your coach, mentor, leader, boss thought you're procrastinating, how would you like them to feel, or how would you like them to respond? And they tell you, and then you say, would that work? And it's crazy how many people will say, maybe. So why are you giving me advice to help you, knowing that it's probably not going to help you? I mean, people don't think through things real well. So what you're doing is you're going into the bipolar, the quad polar. So you're going through all of these, and then you're letting them choose what they want, helping them to understand. I can go ahead and bring up the heat. That's where you're going to like me the least, but learn the most.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah, so it's essentially explaining it to them, but then, okay, so which one do you want? And then it's putting the ball back in their court
Right.
where I can help you as much as you allow me.
Right. So you
Okay.
can say 1 to 10, how direct or intense would you like me to be with you? And they will often go ahead and say a 10, especially if they're a man, because their testosterone is going very high. And so, especially if you're a woman, they don't want to look weak to you. So the testosterone, and then they say a 10, and you say, okay. Now, if they say a 6, you can say, what do you need me to be to get where you want to go? And that will push them up higher. Well, probably an 8 or 9. So it's weird. people know, but they don't know. Then what you do is you say, okay, so Michael Cogdill, he like won 29 Emmy Awards. He was introduced to me by David Hancock, the president and founder of Morgan James Publishing out of New York. And Michael Cogdill, I talked to him 2 times on the phone for 30 minutes. At the end of the second conversation we had, he says, Mark, you're an executive coach, right? I said, yeah, and he says, so you're pretty good at reading people? And I said, I don't know, maybe. He says, what do you think of me? And I said, well, Michael, 1 to 10, how direct would you like me to be with you? He's like, oh, give me a 10. I said, well, Michael, and you do this, Nora. It works. This is what you do. And you need to go ahead and do it, especially because you're a woman and you're a young woman and you come across as being a really nice person. Not saying you're not, but you can bring the heat on if you need to. Like you just can't. And so, but you're probably like Tom Coons, where people say, please, please, Nora, give me more, hit me harder. I don't get that very often. Anyways, so I say to him, I say, well, Michael, my 2 can feel like a 22. So, he wants a 10. I said, well, just heads up, Michael, my 2 can feel like a 22. And he's like, he laughs. I always love when men do this. Testosterone kicks in. He laughs. He says, Mark, I'm in TV. You couldn't tell me something I haven't heard. They brutalize you in TV. And I laughed then. I said, really? He's like, yeah. I said, that's interesting, Michael. I said, do you think you lack confidence? Dead silence on the phone. He's like, no. And he says, you think I lack confidence? I said, well, in the last 2 conversations, here are 5 things. And I gave him specific things in 2 conversations. I said, well, this all seem to indicate that you lack confidence. Dead silence. He's like, dang, are you good? And so, my wife's like, I don't know why people pay you. Yeah, I know. I'm like, right, honey, you and the kids get this for free. You don't have to pay. But this is, if people really want to change, if people really want to grow. So what you do, Nora, is you learn how to go into these different levels. It's like shifting, like how to drive a stick shift, and so you're shifting into different gears and you just shift up and say, how'd that feel?
Okay.
You want to collaborate, you want to it's not collaborate, it's correlate. It's like you want to get into, when you go up to a higher level, you get permission to go up to a higher level and then see how that feels with them.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Nice. Anybody else have anything else? All right. Good stuff. You guys are awesome. Always remember, if you're watching this, you're like, a lot of times it takes 2 to 3 weeks to go ahead, if you're participating, to really get into sync. Like it's a little overwhelming. Like you can tell Amy and Nora, Chris, they're not overwhelmed. This is all, it all makes sense. It's all good. So it takes a few weeks. So don't give up after a week, do that. Pass this along to other people. Don't make the decision for them. Don't say, well, this person's stupid, they wouldn't understand. Don't do that. Okay. Do not do that. Give it to them and just say, hey, I don't know. I mean, I went ahead and, thought this was interesting. Maybe you do. Maybe let them make the decision on their own. If you have any questions on anything we covered today, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the U.S. 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.